Hey, Tom. Yeah.
Test.
All rise. All rise. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and special guests to our morning Rotary Club. I am the acting or inactive Sergeant of Arms, and I'd like to bring up Jim Young, who obviously is already up here, to do our prayer.
Good morning, Rotarians and guests. Let us pray. Eternal God, we look to thee that truth and fedcast we may be. Grant us the strength to make us strong, to serve the right and shun the wrong. Help us to keep a noble air, and through our work, our faith proclaim. Amen.
Thank you, Jim. I want you to know I flew all the way back from sunny California just to be here with you all. My arms are tired. I left your real Sergeant of Arms back in California. Mr. Ron's still there for another week. So, Keith, would you like to come up and share with us the Pledge of Allegiance in the four-way test? I thought last week was the last week there.
Okay, if you'll join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And then the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First is fair. Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you.
Now, Father Joe, do we have a song for the morning? No? Okay. Well, and we have no special guests other than our speaker, which I'm sure you will announce. Would you like to now come up, Father Joe, and lead us in this morning's Rotary Club?
You're not gonna believe it. Yesterday, I spent all day working on my muffler, and today I'm exhausted. I sing for Patrick. So Patrick, good for you. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Yeah. I tried to keep a straight face with that one too. A few of announcements that we have. Next week, following the meeting, will be Board of Directors meeting. So if you're on that Board of Directors, or you're interested in what happens with the Board of Directors, please plan to stay and be part of that meeting. If you're on the Board of Directors, do more than plan. You make sure you're there. So yeah, we'll need all of our board members to be there. We are doing a collection this month for Freedom House in Kent. Freedom House is a transitional housing facility for homeless veterans. And so if you are interested in helping with that, we need toiletry items, personal hygiene products, and non-perishable foods. So this is the collection for this month. We also will always take cash, so they could use that if you want to. See Terry about that. And then with that, we have Jim Lechko is going to come and make a presentation to Patrick, our erstwhile president. Jim, introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us who you are.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Jim Lechko. I recently completed my second 3-year term as the foundation chair, and that's the capacity I am in here today. I'm a member of the Lakewood Rocky River Club, joined back in 2001, and served all the different positions throughout the club and been very active at the district level over the years. But it's always a great day in the Rotary world when we can recognize one of our fellow Rotarians for their support of the foundation. And one of the ways that we always encourage people to do that is through Rotary Direct, which basically is a systematic way of contributing to the foundation. It makes it really simple and easy. You don't have to think about it. It's just an automatic charge against a credit card or a deduction from your bank account that you would set up to be done on a systematic basis, either monthly or quarterly or annually, whatever serves you best. So to encourage people to sign up for Rotary Direct, once a year, for the last several years, we've had a drawing around the time of the foundation event, which we hold in November, of all the people that are currently involved with Rotary Direct. So we draw a name and we award a Paul Harris Fellow to an individual for their support of the foundation through the Rotary Direct program. And this past November, the winner of that Paul Harris Fellow is Patrick Scher. So Patrick, if you would come up, we'd like to recognize you for your support of the foundation. Wednesdays typically isn't a good morning for me to get out, so it's taken me a while to get out here to do this, but better late than never. So this is a Paul Harris Fellow +2 for Patrick. So it's not his first Paul Harris Fellow, obviously, so he's been supporting the foundation for a number of years. So Patrick, we'd like to recognize you for your support and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And then I want to invite Erica to come up and introduce half of our guest team. Okay. We're all together there. Man, we pull stuff together quickly around here. I know. There's a clever girl right here. She knows how to.
Our guests today are Harry Stark and Erica, pronounce her last name, Matheny. Harry Stark was hired at Tinkers Creek Watershed Partners' first executive director in 2014. Harry oversees long-term planning, grant management, fiscal accountability, and leads the Ohio Stormwater Conference. In addition, Harry is the director of public services for the city of Aurora. He has over 30 years of experience in the administrative activities in multiple areas of expertise. Harry has a master's in public administration and is a 2012 graduate of Leadership Medina. Harry also serves as the past president of the Ohio Stormwater Association, executive director of the annual Ohio Stormwater Conference, editorial board for Stormwater Solutions magazine, and state of Ohio representative for EnviroCert International. He has received the Stormwater Professional of the Year from the Ohio Stormwater Association, Distinguished Service Award, and Wayne S. Nichols Award from the Water Management Association of Ohio, District Director Service Award from the Ohio Environmental Health Association, and Business Advocate of the Year from the Wadsworth Chamber of Commerce. Erica is the Deputy Executive Director for Tinkers Creek and Watershed Partners. Her role is to support the vision and mission of the organization to protect and restore water quality and habitats in the Tinkers Creek and Brandywine Creek watersheds through community partnerships while working to grow the organization's impact and reach. Erica holds a PhD in urban studies and public administration and has more than 15 years experience teaching and researching urban and environmental issues at Cleveland State University and several other local universities. Her research has involved watershed health and decision-making around disaster and emergency planning. Prior to joining TCWP, Erica was employed at the National Inventors Hall of Fame, where she conducted impact research, developed national STEM programs, led the Diversity, Equality, and Inclusion Committee as its training coordinator, and spearheaded sustainability efforts, reducing more than 80% of single-use plastic materials used by more than 20,000 program participants. With that, I'll invite you guys up to the stage.
Good morning. It's great to be here today. I think this is the first time we've ever had an opportunity to speak at Hudson Rotary, so thank you. I am Harry Stark. I guess I'm going to start this presentation out and turn it over to Erica. I'm kind of the old dog, turning it over to the new dog. As we go through this presentation, I have been involved with Tinkers Creek since its formation. And, I'm going to talk a little bit about the change of leadership over to Erica as well, but it's great to be here. We formed in 2005, and the Tinkers Creek Land Conservancy was being absorbed by the Western Reserve Land Conservancy, and they had reached out to me because I had done some work over in the Rocky River watershed and asked if I could help create a watershed devoted to Tinkers Creek. I live right on the edge of Tinkers Creek, and I was kind of excited. It sounds great, right? And to go from that day, I remember it clearly, having a couple of drinks with an individual, and to where we are today, starting with no staff, a dedicated board, to 5 full-time staff, 16 now core AmeriCorps members, and we've been able to do a lot of projects over the years, and really have tried to make a difference within the watershed. So let's go to the next slide, please. Our mission is simple. It's to protect and restore the water quality and habitats in the Tinkers Creek and Brandywine watersheds through community partnerships. Community partnerships is everybody: government, businesses, residents, those who come and visit, and those who work within our watersheds. And then the vision: clean water, healthy habitats, and engaged communities. So, next slide, please. I am just going to go through a few highlights of projects we have done. When I took a look at all of the projects that we've done, because Erica and I have talked a lot about history, right? I give that historical perspective of the organization. And we have done a lot with limited staff. And these are just some highlights of some of the larger projects that we've done. The Hudson High School Stream Restoration Project and Land Lab was here in Hudson, obviously. And that was through an Ohio EPA grant. We worked with the school district and a lot of different partners on that project. I think it came out great. Students have been utilizing that land lab. And up until a couple of years ago, COVID kind of changed some things. They were out there a lot, and we would go out there, do some invasive work with them, but that was a great project. Next slide, please. In 2018, we were approached by Hudson, by a couple council members about Brandywine. They knew all the work that we were doing in the Tinkers Creek watershed and wanted to see if we would be interested in helping in Brandywine. Brandywine had completed a, I can't think of the name now, but it was some type of a project, but they wanted to create more of a watershed action plan. How do we bring that watershed back into attainment, like the work that we've been doing in Tinkers Creek? So in 2018, we wrote the NPSIS, non-point source plan for that. That's something EPA requires to get funding. And in 2018, it was adopted and approved by the EPA. So we started to do some work in Brandywine at that point in time. In 2018 and 2019, we received additional grants for work in Hudson. One was the Hudson Tenbrook project. That was a stream restoration project that is located off of Aurora Hudson Road near the border of Streetsboro. That was a great project. There was a lot of erosion, a lot of flooding in that area. There's a natural floodplain, but the stream was really starting to channelize and cause some issues. So that project was completed. And then right after that, we received a project that was just completed, the Owen Brown Stream Restoration Project, Owen Brown Street over that way, I think. We just completed that. It was a longer process than normal because of the Army Corps, but that project was just completed here in the community. Next slide. And we just received a new grant at the end of last year, the Darrow Road Stream Restoration Project. So there's Darrow Road Park in Hudson. And there is a channelized ditch that runs through that park. And so we are going to be doing a stream restoration project to that. And we are starting the RFP process right now and hopefully get this project started sometime later this year. But those are just some of the highlights that we've done in Hudson. But we've done a lot of different stream restoration projects. We've done a lot of community outreach, and Eric is going to touch on a lot of that. One of the coolest things I think we've done is our AmeriCorps program. So if everybody knows what AmeriCorps is, it gives an opportunity for students to come and work for a stipend for a period of time. And then at the end of their term, they receive money through the AmeriCorps to help them with their education. Over the last 4 years, we've had 65 members come through. And next year, we're going to be up to, what, 24, I think? 25 members in 1 year. So we currently have 11 host sites that we work with throughout Northeast Ohio. And all of these individuals do watershed and environmental work. And it's been great. And the individuals that have graduated through that process, the majority of them all have gotten jobs within that field. Next slide, please. So in grant funding alone, we've been able to bring in over $4 million for Tinkers Creek and Brandywine watersheds. As an individual who started an organization with no staff, part-time staff, one staff and up, I think that's been an amazing feat, you know, to see the growth of the organization and some of the impacts that we have made. Next, please. My last slide, and then I'm going to turn it over, but COVID changed a lot for a lot of people. And so we've really looked hard in our diversification of our revenue and finances. And obviously we receive a lot of money in grants. Bad thing about grants is you can only use a little bit of it towards salaries and administrative work. So we get a lot of support from members, community members. Many of our communities, the cities actually are members of our organization because they see a benefit of us. The business community, we do a lot of events and fundraising, a lot. So work agreements and then projects. So all of that, I think we've diversified really well. We were very fortunate. We were able to make payroll during COVID. It got scary at some points, but we made it through. But we've been able to get a nice cash reserve at this point. You know, this has been an organization that we continue to look at sustainability. I do this part-time during my free time because I have a full-time job and I've had a full-time job. And it's, you know, we've always looked for that perfect person to take this organization to the next level. And I think Erica is that person. Erica's been with us now since July of last year. And in July of this year, that's our fiscal year, she will become the executive director. And I will just do projects and she'll be my boss and tell me what to do. But I think she's going to be awesome. And, you know, looking forward to the future of the organization and the growth. So that's my quick presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Erica where she can talk about more of the fun stuff. Thank you.
Next slide, please. Next. You can hear. So like Harry said, I'm Erica Matheny, and I'm going to talk about the fun stuff. So we do a lot of different work at Tinkers Creek Watershed Partners, and a lot of the work we do is around watersheds. Watersheds, I thought I would just begin by talking about why it's really important to value watersheds and to think about environmental work from a watershed perspective. So you in Hudson are really lucky that you have headwaters for Tinkers Creek, you have Brandywine Creek here, you have a lot of important water for all of, Northeast Ohio. And this all leads into the Cuyahoga River, which of course is going right into Lake Erie. So the value of that fresh water really can't be overestimated. It's really important to the health of the region. So when we think about what watershed health does and why it's important, it provides ecosystem services. So those are all sorts of things that help the community of people, animals, plants, the land to all be as healthy as we can possibly make it. Just a few things to list quickly. It helps to cycle nutrients through the environment. It helps to sequester carbon. It helps. And so with climate change or global warming or anything along those lines, we don't want more carbon going into the atmosphere. We want it to stay. Erosion sedimentation control. So helping to prevent flooding, increasing biodiversity. That can be native plants, native animals, endangered species that we have in the region. We want to create that habitat, maintain the habitat that helps to retain those organisms for our health and for the health of the earth. So supporting wildlife and reducing vulnerability to invasive species that might outcompete those native species is very important. Water storage, filtration, flood control. I know Hudson has a historic flood about 20 years ago that was a really big, a terrible impact on the community. And so doing what we can to help control the flooding events of the future is really important. And then recreation. Of course, we want to be able to go out and have fun on the creek. So a lot of people kayak, fish, lots of other activities. Just getting in the water or near the water is good for our emotional health. It's just fun with our families. And then finally, reduce vulnerability to climate change and other natural disasters. So looking towards the future, it's really important that we're thinking about that long-term sort of impact. Okay, so next slide, please. So Harry kind of talked about our restoration project. So that's a big piece of what we do. The other parts are community outreach and education. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about each of those. So next slide, please. So some upcoming education projects that we have. I focused on the community here because I thought that would be most interesting for you, all of you. And maybe you'll even come out and participate in some of our projects. We have Rain Barrel Workshop coming up on Earth Day and April 22nd. If you don't know what a rain barrel is, that white on the top right gives you kind of an idea of what it might look like. If you have one connected to a downspout to your house, it helps to take the water that might go down into a culvert or into a stormwater drain, and instead it diverts it into a container that you can use to water the plants in your yard or for other uses. It's a great way to divert stormwater and to slow down flooding, especially if you have wet spots in your lawn that tend to get really like ponded in the spring. So if you're interested, we'll have information about how to sign up for that workshop coming up soon. And then an exciting program we just received funding from the Northeastern Ohio Regional Sewer District is around microplastics. This is an emerging issue of environmental concern. And microplastics are just plastic materials that, it could be bags from the grocery store. It could be plastic bottles that end up in water. A lot of the attention's been in the ocean, but it happens in lakes and rivers as well. And then those break down into tiny pieces like that picture in the middle that's on a fingertip. They're very, very small, almost microscopic. And there's a lot of impact that we're really just not sure of at this point. It might impact human health. It might impact animals and a lot of different things that rely on the watershed. And so we're going to do some testing. That bottom picture on the left shows just a collection method where you go and collect some water for a certain period of time. And then we have some lab helpers that are at Cleveland Water and at the sewer district that have said that they'll volunteer to help us test the water and kind of quantify and give us some information about how much plastic's in the water, the size of the particles, and some of the characteristics of them. And so that can help us to have a better understanding of what we're dealing with. And we hope to use that for education to reduce plastic pollution. And so that means, you know, picking up trash, doing stream cleanup events, and then trying to use less plastic. Next slide. So the Earth Day, April 22nd. Who's been to Earth Day in Hudson downtown? A couple people. I hear it's really fun. So there's a whole Earth Week, but Earth Day on Saturday, we will be there with a table. We will be having the rain barrel event. And I think that it should be a great activity, a great time. So I hope to see some of you there. Next slide. So just a few more events we have coming up. Like Harry said, we do a lot of events. So we have a golf outing, March 16th, that will be at Top Golf. I'm really excited. We just secured May 4th to have a foraged event. And so there's a chef that we're working with. His restaurant's called Farmer's Feast. And he's agreed to go and do some foraging with us to look for some native plants that are edible, and then also some invasive plants that are edible. And then he'll use those to create a menu. And then we'll have an event around the foraged food. So it should be a really fun, interesting thing. If you've never eaten fiddlehead ferns or rose hips or any other things that you can forage locally, come on out and join us. This summer, we're going to have a grand opening of a new rain garden that we're installing at our office in Twinsburg. And so we have those AmeriCorps members that Harry talked about. They're coming, they're all doing the master rain garden class, and a part of that class is to install a rain garden. So they're going to do it on site at our office. And then we're going to have a grand opening for that rain garden. And we're going to also include just a watershed festival alongside of that. And so if you don't know what a rain garden is, if you're interested in learning about rain gardens, we may be holding some workshops later, possibly later this year or next year. But it's a great way, again, to control stormwater. It adds beauty to your lawn. And it's just pollinators also are really a nice thing you can add to the kind of rain garden type of garden. So that's going to be a great event. And then later this summer, in August, we're going to have a kayak run on Tinkers Creek. And so we'll just have a nice kayaking event where everybody can actually get out on the creek, kind of see the beauty, and do some recreation. And then we have an annual Drinkers for Tinkers, which is just a fundraiser that we hold at a brewery. And it's been at Hop Tree Brewery the last few years. So it's a fun event, again, usually in October. Very laid back, just to get together, a good time to network and just talk about the work we're doing, or if anybody has, stuff that they're interested in us working with. It's a great time to talk about that. All right, next. And another thing that we, as a part of our kind of education and outreach, is to do volunteer water quality monitoring. And so both in Brandywine and in Tinkers Creek, we have some sites where we go out during the good weather between May and October, a few times every month, and take samples of the stream. And then we test it for different water quality measures like oxygen levels, pH, several other things. And then we compare that over time and year to year. And that kind of gives us some information about the health of the stream. And then this year in Brandywine, we're adding the macroinvertebrate monitoring. So I'm really excited about this. Macroinvertebrates are like little nymphs and little larvae and different kinds of organisms that can give us a lot of information about the health of the watershed. So we know if certain organisms are present, then that's a healthy stream. If they're not present, maybe there's some more work we need to do, or we need to find out what's going on that's preventing them from using that, that environment that we would expect them to be in. So that will be a really fun thing we're going to do a few times this summer, excuse me, within Brandywine Watershed. So there is a QR code and a website that are available that if you want to sign up to do some volunteer water monitoring, anybody can do it. You don't need any background in it. It's really fun to just come out, learn about it. We'll have an employee that will come out and help with learning the equipment and learning exactly what to do. And it's just really fun to get to be a part of this project. And we aggregate the data that we collect up with a larger Lake Erie group. And so then it will show like the whole watershed for the Lake Erie watershed and compare our data to that. So it's not just for us, it's for this much larger project. So it's a really important thing to be a part of. Next slide, please. Okay, and so then finally, what can you do? Let's work together towards a shared vision of creating our vision of clean water, healthy habitats, and engaged communities. So we always are looking for funding support. Like Harry said, we're always hustling, having events, looking for grants. So if anyone knows of anything, volunteer support, we are looking for those volunteer water monitoring participants, and then attending events, showing your support through community is really appreciated. And then if you know of projects or are aware of things that people might be interested, we're always looking for new things to add. So if people are interested in doing a pollinator garden workshop or a rain garden workshop or something else that we haven't talked about today, let us know. And we're always looking for new ideas and ways to get engaged with you. So thank you very much.
And I just want to add one more thing. You know, when you look back at our mission is really to make a change, but we can't do it all ourselves, right? You know, we get to do some of the larger projects. Projects are my thing. So we do a lot of larger projects, but you know, we really need people to be part of the organization and help take the message and keep doing it, you know, and we try to educate and get the information out. In fact, just a personal point, you know, I've been involved with this organization ever since my youngest has been born. And she has been around Tinkers Creek organization volunteering since she was a little kid. And she's actually in Kent State now for environmental studies. And she was an intern for us. And it's nice to see that something I did rubbed off in a positive way because she does really care and she's awesome. In fact, you know, she is trying to do zero waste and stuff like that. And she yells at me all the time about our not doing that. But yeah, we just need everybody's support. So thank you. Any questions?
Thank you both for coming, and we really appreciate it. So tell us, how do you get interested in Watershed as a career? I mean, it's fascinating, but I don't know that I would ever, you know, how does one wind their way through environmental sciences and get to the point of, oh, I want to think about the way water is moving about.
I'll start since I'm the historical perspective here. I don't know. I've always been fascinated, you know, with the environment. We were talking a little bit before the meeting. You know, I grew up in Buffalo and then moved to Florida because I couldn't take the snow anymore. And I just love water. You know, I loved anything that I could do. And when I came up here for a job and found a creative outlet, you know, to help, you know, it started with the Rocky River watershed. I had an awesome opportunity there. And you just, I don't know, that's a hard question to answer. It's just, I guess the way I look at it is either, you know, it's inbred in you. And, you know, my parents were always very supportive of the environment. And, you know, I've tried to instill that into my kids as well. Yeah, that's a tough question.
I mean, I have mine.
Could we say it was organic? I don't know.
Yeah. You guys need a drum kit here. Yeah. So I can say for me, When I went to college, I thought I was going to be a physician. I went in thinking I was going to go to medical school and then really fell in love with environmental health and ended up going to graduate school for ecology and then urban studies and public administration. And I did research looking at the Mahoning River for my master's. And so just looking at the impact of industry on that region and what it did to the water really sparked my interest in doing environmental cleanups and just thinking about how this impacts human health and how important it is for us to protect it. So.
Hey, thanks for coming this morning. If you drive around the area, I think as far north as Valley View, Tinkers Creek Tavern, far south is Hudson, and all around the place, you'll stumble across Tinkers Creek here and Tinkers Creek there. But I frankly have no idea where it begins, where it ends, and what this territory is in between. Could you maybe talk a little about that?
Yeah, that's a great, excuse me, a great question. We have just, if only I would have brought it. We have a great employee that just did a map using GIS of the whole watershed. And so it's Tinkers and Brandywine. We'll put it up on our website. So then if you guys come to tinkerscreek.org, you can see it. But Tinkers Creek has 4 counties. It has 22 communities, 24 communities. And then once you add in Brandywine, we have 30 communities. And so it's a very large region and the creek itself is very, very windy. And so that's how it ends up being, I think, 26.4 miles. It's a very long, windy path of the creek. So yeah, I understand your confusion. It's everywhere. So
Where does it start?
So I was going to add to what Erica said. So it's the largest tributary to the Cuyahoga River. It's 96 miles. And it is like fingers, right? Any creek has a bunch of fingers. They're called headwater streams. So there's not like one location. You know, Hudson has a lot of these fingers that are like at the top of the watershed. So if you look at a hillside, water when it comes down is going to go to one side or the other, right? But it's not going to follow a clear path. And so there's many intermittent streams, headwater streams throughout the region that eventually makes its way into larger tributaries and creeks. So, you know, there's a small creek behind Hudson High School. There's one at Darrow Road Park, and they eventually all come together into Tinkers Creek. So there's not like one location where it starts. You know, there's Beechwood, there's headwater streams in Aurora and Orange Village, you know, they're all over the place. And then they just all kind of migrate together.
Hi, I'm on the school board here. We were talking earlier about the stream restoration, and just to say that it keeps paying dividends. I mean, not only is it a learning lab, and obviously originally it was basically a ditch, you know, where water would flood. So the houses downstream were getting flooded. And I think since this has been done, that's really alleviated that. So that keeps benefiting. I'm trying to get my fellow board member to be interested in pollinator gardens. No, actually, he's been a force behind those. So he'll talk to you about those as well. But question about, so I row on, it's not river. So in terms of sources of pollution, it sounds like with the streams, you'll get that off of, you know, in various places that may contain the chemicals and things that you're talking about. Often rivers, you think about actually someone dumping or, you know, releasing chemicals in there. Do you get that with the streams and the watershed, or is it more all these million little sources?
I'll start this off. I think it's the latter. You know, we have a lot of problems with LJ growth and nutrient issues. And that's, you know, a lot of that's from lawn care products. You know, we've tried to push sustainable lawn care practices, right? But most people want that green lawn, you know, and that's a tough one. Erosion is a serious issue, right? Erosion. What is the life of a creek? It's macroinvertebrates, and it's those organisms that fish and other things feed on. When you get a lot of erosion into creeks, you know, it can cause them to die, right? And so stormwater is a terrible enemy of creek health. And that's why we focus a lot on stormwater management, and communities look at it more for flooding. You know, well, we look at it more quantity and quality, right? So there's those issues. Obviously, there's dumping issues. You know, we've had a couple issues there. You have individuals who, you got a nice wetland that does a lot of great work, right? You know, a wetland is kind of like a kidney, you know, to some degree. And all of a sudden that wetland, somebody illegally maybe puts a pipe in or something to drain it, and then that's an issue, right? So I think there's a lot of issues that causes impairments, and it's easy to cause an impairment. It's harder to get it back to where it was, right? And the Cuyahoga River, the Cuyahoga AOC, area of concern, has done tremendous projects over the years. And we're trying to do our part with Tinkers Creek, you know, to eventually get us back into attainment, which won't happen in my lifetime, you know, because it's a long process, but doing restoration projects, trying to educate businesses and public and the elected officials is a key to help us continue to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said most of it. But yeah, the total dissolved solids, which is the cloudiness that happens from erosion, and it prevents sunlight from getting into the water, which allows all of those organisms to have a healthy experience, and it just makes the ecosystem less friendly to water critters. So yeah, but Harry said everything, so I'm gonna stop. That's a technical term, water critters.
A long time ago, when the International Joint Commission first asked the question of whether or not pollutants were getting in the lake from land management practices, and if so, with what effect and what should be done about it. And that was in the mid 1970s. My watershed is the Great Lakes. And so is yours, and so is everybody's who's in this room. And one of the things that we finally learned was that we had to manage the problems at the source, which is why watershed management at the source, as Tinkers Creek is so critical. And yet, about 2 weeks ago, the director of the retirement community where I live, when asked, didn't he think that the algae that was growing in our lakes and ponds was a problem? He said, that's a sign of good water quality. And there were jaws dropping. So we have huge education in Hudson, never mind the watershed left to go. And I'm really pleased to see what you all are doing, because the partnerships are the way. And I think Hudson City is ripe for that. And I know they're already engaged, but I think that there are some other partners in town that would be very happy to step up to the point. And so if you're going to be here for a couple minutes afterwards, but thank you for what you've done and what you will continue to do.
Thank you. Yeah, everything, because we've talked about before, restoration projects are great. We can do a lot of good with that, but we can do so much more, because each person we educate can educate 5 other people they know, and that ripple effect is much, much larger than anything we can do with an EPA restoration project over a few miles. So
So just a couple questions. Did you use the word attainment earlier? What was that word that you used? Could you tell us what that means?
So EPA uses the term attainment. It's basically what is the water quality of an area, right? And so they have these books, you know, this is what it should be, right?
Okay.
And it includes fish health, you know, big parameters, right? It's not just a simple, you know, taking a sample, right? One of the problems we have is we have a lot of urban watersheds, and the attainment levels that the EPA has is great for rural areas. It is not for urban areas. When you know, this is kind of a mix out here, but when you are in other areas of Tinkers Creek, say the Maple Heights area, Warrensville Heights, that is all built up, right? It is a real urban area, and you will never get attainment in those areas because creeks aren't incised. There's no riparian buffers on them, you know, so anything that happens in those areas goes directly into the water, right? And we've argued for years that there should be different levels of attainment for different sections of watersheds, right? Obviously, in a rural area, you can implement a lot, right? Because you don't have houses, or you don't typically build right up to a creek. You can create kind of a buffer zone to help. Buffer zones are great, you know, riparian zones. You probably heard a lot of that about that lately, maybe not. But a riparian zone is a section of land next to a creek that you can't disturb. And so you let it grow natural. So if there's anything that is on the ground that's making its way to the creek, those grasses and natural areas help filter it a little bit, right? But the attainment is just bringing the creek back into a certain level of health. And that's a challenge. It is a challenge. And I'll tell you, Cuyahoga River has come a long way. There has been some areas of concern. EPA has designated certain large rivers as areas of concern that have actually gotten off of that list over the years, which is great to see. But it, you know, we can only do so much, they can only do so much. And that's a long drawn out answer to your question. So I apologize.
No, that's good. Well, I mean, just for, so if you think about like, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10 or 1 to 100, whatever, how would you kind of characterize the health of the overall health of the Tinkers Creek watershed? Maybe 20 years ago relative to now. I'm just kind of curious. Are we making any progress?
That's a great question. I think overall, yes. When 2003 happened and the Second Amendment to the Clean Water Act was created, called the Phase 2 Stormwater Regs, it put a lot of emphasis on better stormwater management, because again, a lot of stormwater is a detriment to health of a creek. And because of the stormwater management requirements that the EPA put on communities, helped. It helped with quantity and some quality. You know, developers hate it, you know, because they have to do different things when they develop a site, but it's helping with that runoff. I think the northern part of the watershed is in worse shape than the southern portion, just because it's more urban up in that area. You know, we've done some stream restoration projects up in the northern part of the watershed, and those are difficult to do. You know, we did one, it's on Bear Creek in Warrensville Heights. And you try to create, when you do a restoration project, you try to create a natural sinuosity to a creek, because over time it gets incised. And now I'm really going off on a tangent. But when you're in an urban watershed, you don't have the room to create that sinuosity. So you're taking an incised stream, you're restoring it, but how long is it going to last, right? Because it's still got this look, because water doesn't naturally flow like this. It, you know, water kind of flows this way. And you have to create additional flood areas for the water to kind of go through so it doesn't keep incising it. So that's more of a challenge, and it's harder because you don't have the room to do that. So I would say compared to 20 years ago, it's better. You know, there's reports that are done by the EPA every so many years. They're called TMDL, total maximum daily load studies. There hasn't been one done in our watershed for quite a while. The last one was done, I think, in 2005. So someday they'll do another one, and then we'll compare it at that point to that study. but just seeing the differences, you know, from being part of the creek for so long, I would have to say, yes, it's improved, especially on the southern side and more on the northern side. So my 2 cents.
I'm delighted to see you have so many events. I was very fortunate when I lived in Pittsburgh. I belonged to the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy. And we took a lot of trips down the Allegheny River, the Clarion River, and the French Creek. And it brought to mind that they pointed out to us that, particularly in the French Creek, if you see freshwater mussels and you see the kits that the muskrats build along the side after eating the mussels, and you see the salamanders, it's a very healthy creek. And I know that French Creek is one of the healthiest. Do we ever see mussels and salamanders and so on in Tinker's Creek?
Yeah, we do. And that's actually one thing that we were working on, looking at what endangered species of mussels that we have in our creek. So we're trying to kind of do an inventory of that information so that then we can use that to go out and inform our water quality monitoring when we do the macroinvertebrate work.
I imagine, I don't know this for certain, but Tinker's Creek and Brandywine eventually make their way into the national park at some point. What collaborations does your organization have with the national park system and those kind of things in terms of maintaining those watersheds once they get into the national park area?
As you can imagine, we have a huge list of partners, right? And national parks, soil and water districts, CLAB. CLAB is an organization made up of a lot of different watershed organizations, park districts, Cleveland Metro Parks, all of those. And their focus is to come together and talk about collaborative projects. So looking historically, collaboration right now is so much better than it used to be, because in the past, everybody had their little fiefdom, right? And you know, people would get upset if we got a grant and they didn't, right? Everybody was competing for a little pot of money. But what we found, thank God, over the years, that other organizations realize, as well as we do, that coming together and partnering, we can actually bring in more money than trying to just keep competing against each other. So yes, we have great partnerships with park districts, Summit Metro, Cleveland Metro Parks, national parks, and a lot of organizations. So we try to pick a theme for education for the year, you know, and we all kind of follow through that and do the same thing. You know, so there's a lot that goes into that. Again, I think we've done, sorry, I'm an awful, this is going to be my last time as a director to actually talk. So I'm taking my 10 seconds here, but the one thing I will, and I'll stop talking after this, you know, one of the things we really do is rely on our communities and those individuals to work with us and help us, right? And without that, we won't be successful.
Thanks. Yeah, and just you're fine. Real quick about the collaboration. So yeah, I am on the club. So it's the Collaborative for the Lake Erie Basin. So it's a whole series of different groups that work together within the Lake Erie Basin. And I'm also on the steering committee for the Cugga River AOC. And so we are actually talking about making plans for delisting. So it's really exciting that we're reaching a point where the Cugga River is healthy enough that we can start to make those plans. And so the work that we'll do here in Tinker's Creek will contribute to that. And so continuing to think about what we can do with landowners to help reduce those pollutant loads that we're putting into the creek, and just providing alternatives is really important. Any other questions? Thank you so much for having us.
second.
sure.
Help me out with something? All right. We always do a raffle every week. So the Rotabuck raffle, the payout is $7. The jackpot's 123. So we're starting to move up on that. So if you would pick us out a number, if you picked out mine, I'd be really happy. All right. All right.
All right, the number is 681-445. 681-445. Hey, congratulations.
Up to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You're important route, people will come to you. All right, more cup. Bring us out a black marble. Alas. I gave you the money. I did. Okay. Yeah, I stuck the money in my pocket. No. Great job. Thank you, Harry and Erica, for coming, and we appreciate so much information and yeah, it really educated me quite a bit. I even have new words here. I'm not even sure I can write them out, but thank you so much. So much. Thank you to Tom back there in the back for running the AV for us. Great job. Appreciate that. I think we have time for a quick one, don't we? A quick story, yeah, maybe. Yeah, just a bit. Okay, so everybody here knows somebody who's a difficult difficult. And there's a story about Benjamin Franklin who had this colleague in the legislature that he just could not get along with. He tried and tried, but every time they met, the man was caustic and just difficult, acerbic, and all these kind of just really could not get along with him. And Franklin just tried and tried and tried, and finally he had this idea. He had heard the man speaking about a book that he read, and so he waited till he met him, and he says to him, "Hey, you mentioned that book the other day. I wondered if you might loan it to me." And the fellow looks at him really hard and kind of, curiously, but says, yes, he does. And in short order, he delivered the book to Franklin, who read it as fast as he could, and he could read very quickly. So he read it maybe in a night and wrote down some notes about it, thought about it. So he takes the book back to the fellow and he tells him, this is a very fascinating book, and I like this part and so on. And again, the man starts looking at him, with greater sense of curiosity. And he realized after a very short order, days go by and weeks go by, that the man becomes kinder, gentler, more friendly with him. And it goes back to this old axiom, if I can remember it, which is the one who has done you a kindness will more likely do it again, rather than one to whom you only have obliged yourself. That is, if only you were the one doing, acts of kindness, it's not reciprocal. But if you get them started, once they start, and here's why, it has to do with this thing called cognitive dissonance, holding two different ideas in your head at the same time. One, I don't like this person. The other, I like him well enough to loan him a book. And so the more you kind of realize that, our minds try to settle that. We try to get rid of that uncomfortable feeling. Well, I must just like him. So if I ever ask to borrow a book from you, you know the rest. Hey, have a great day. Do something great. Make a difference in the world.